September 20th, 2023. A quiet farm in Deeside, Wales. As Guy Remington reversed his lorry toward the wooden barn, he had no idea that hidden surveillance teams had been watching his every move for months. Inside his specially modified trailer lay 505 kilograms of pure cocaine and 108 kilograms of heroin, worth over 64 million pounds on the streets. This wasn't just another drug smuggling operation. This was the sophisticated European supply network that had been feeding the Bandidos Motorcycle Club's UK expansion for over 3 years. A criminal empire that stretched from the coffee shops of Amsterdam to the industrial estates of Liverpool, generating profits that would make multinational corporations envious. Tonight, we take you inside Operation Falcon, the investigation that brought down one of the most sophisticated drug trafficking networks in British criminal history. A network that the Bandidos had spent years building, believing their military-style discipline and international connections made them untouchable. They were wrong. By the time the handcuffs clicked shut on that Welsh farm, law enforcement had dismantled a 250 million pound criminal enterprise and delivered a crushing blow to the Bandidos' ambitions of dominating the UK drug trade. This is the inside story of how they did it. The Bandidos arrive in Britain. The Bandidos Motorcycle Club didn't announce their arrival in the UK with violence or fanfare. They came with something far more dangerous: a business plan. Founded in Texas in 1966 by dock worker Donald Eugene Chambers, the Bandidos had evolved from a regional motorcycle club into a global criminal corporation. Their fat Mexican logo, a cartoonish bandit wielding a machete and pistol, might have looked like a joke, but by 2020, they controlled drug trafficking networks across 22 countries. Unlike other motorcycle clubs that relied on territorial dominance and street-level violence, the Bandidos operated like a multinational corporation. They had legitimate front businesses, sophisticated money laundering operations, and most importantly, established supply chains that connected South American cartels with European distribution networks. When they identified the UK as a prime expansion market around 2019, they didn't send prospects to claim territory through intimidation. They sent logistics experts to establish infrastructure. The mathematics were irresistible. A kilogram of cocaine that cost $8,000 to produce in Colombia could be purchased for $35,000 in Amsterdam and sold for $45,000 wholesale in Manchester, with individual street sales pushing the total value toward £80,000. For an organization with established European connections, the UK represented a profit margin that legitimate businesses could only dream of. But entering the British market required more than just criminal connections. It demanded operational sophistication that could evade the national crime agency's increasingly effective surveillance capabilities. The Bandidos had learned hard lessons from law enforcement successes against other motorcycle clubs, and they were determined not to repeat those mistakes. Their UK operation would be different. No obvious clubhouses covered in gang colors, no territorial disputes with established criminal organizations, no street-level dealing that attracted police attention. Instead, they would operate like an import-export business that happened to traffic drugs rather than a motorcycle gang that happened to make money. The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Establish a supply chain that appeared completely legitimate while generating profits that would fund rapid expansion across the UK market. Building the network. By early 2021, intelligence reports suggested that a new player had entered the UK drug market. Unlike traditional importers who move small quantities through multiple routes, this organization was processing industrial volumes through a single, highly sophisticated supply chain. The operation's sophistication became clear through patterns that took months for law enforcement to identify. Legitimate haulage companies were being used to transport specially modified trailers between Dover and various locations across England and Wales. The paperwork was perfect, the routes were logical, and the drivers had clean criminal records. But hidden within these routine commercial movements was a drug trafficking network of unprecedented scale. The masterstroke was the recruitment of Guy Remington, a 48-year-old logistics specialist from Hereford, with 15 years of experience in European freight transport. Remington wasn't a traditional criminal. He had no motorcycle club connections and no previous drug trafficking experience. But he possessed exactly what the Bandidos needed: legitimate business credentials and detailed knowledge of cross-channel transport procedures. Remington's recruitment followed the Bandidos' corporate model precisely. He was approached not as a potential gang member, but as a business partner, offering lucrative consulting opportunities with an import company seeking to expand into European markets. The initial payments were substantial enough to overcome any ethical concerns, and by the time Remington understood the true nature of his employers, he was too financially dependent to withdraw. The operation structure revealed the Bandidos' organizational evolution. Rather than a traditional pyramid with clear hierarchies, they had created a cellular network where each component operated independently. Remington handled European procurement and transport. Luke Hurst, a 37-year-old farmer from D-side, provided secure storage and distribution facilities. Thomas Smith controlled Liverpool-based street distribution networks. Morgan Towner managed London and Southern England operations. Each cell operated with minimal knowledge of the other's activities. Communications were conducted through encrypted devices and coded language that made intercepted messages appear to discuss legitimate agricultural and transport business. Money flows were disguised through legitimate business accounts and property investments. The beauty of the system was its apparent legitimacy. Remington's transport company processed dozens of routine commercial loads that provided perfect cover for drug shipments. Hurst's farm regularly received agricultural deliveries that attracted no attention from neighbors or authorities. Smith and Towner operated through established business networks that appeared completely legitimate to casual observation, but the scale of their activities was staggering. Between May and September 2023 alone, intelligence suggests they imported over 2 tons of Class A drugs, worth approximately 250 million pounds wholesale. The profits from this operation were funding Bandidos' expansion plans that included establishing official chapters in Manchester, Birmingham, and London. The perfect crime. For 18 months, the operation ran with clockwork precision. Remington made regular trips through the Eurotunnel, transporting what appeared to be routine commercial cargo between European suppliers and UK distributors. His modified trailer contained hidden compartments so sophisticated that they could only be detected through detailed physical examination, something that rarely occurred during routine customs inspections. The concealment method was a masterpiece of criminal engineering. Behind wooden panels that appeared to be standard trailer construction lay specially designed compartments that could hold hundreds of kilograms of drugs while maintaining the trailer's legitimate cargo capacity. The modification had been carried out by professional engineers who understood both structural requirements and detection avoidance. Each import operation followed the same careful pattern. Remington would receive encrypted instructions containing delivery schedules disguised as agricultural supply orders. He would drive his empty trailer to predetermined locations in Holland, France, or Belgium, where contacts would load the concealed compartments under cover of legitimate business activities. The return journey through Dover Customs relied on a combination of legitimate paperwork, established business relationships, and statistical probability. Remington's transport company had built an exemplary reputation through years of routine commercial operations. His trailer modifications were undetectable without physical inspection. The documentation showed routine agricultural supplies being transported to established UK distributors. Most importantly, the Bandidos had studied customs procedures extensively and designed their operation to exploit known gaps in enforcement capabilities. They understood that physical inspection rates remained low for established commercial operators, and they had calculated that consistent small-scale importations would attract less attention than occasional large shipments. At Hurst's farm in Deeside, the drugs were unloaded and repackaged with military precision. The 48-hectare property provided perfect cover for the operation, isolated enough to prevent casual observation, but connected to major transport networks through legitimate agricultural access roads. The distribution system was equally sophisticated. Rather than requiring customers to visit the farm and potentially compromise its location, Hurst operated a mobile delivery service. Buyers would meet him at a nearby service station or designated location where they would temporarily surrender their vehicles. Hearst would then drive their cars to the farm, load them with drugs, and return them to their owners, all without revealing the operational base. This methodology eliminated most security risks while maintaining operational efficiency. Customers never saw the farm's location. Neighbors observed only routine agricultural activities. Police surveillance would show legitimate business meetings at public locations, followed by normal vehicle movements. Operation Falcon strikes. Detective Chief Inspector Zoe Russo had been tracking unusual patterns in drug availability across northwest England since early 2023. Street-level dealers were consistently accessing higher quality products at lower wholesale prices than traditional supply chains could support. Someone had established a new importation network with unprecedented efficiency. The breakthrough came through financial intelligence rather than traditional surveillance. Banking algorithms designed to detect money laundering had identified suspicious patterns in accounts linked to agricultural businesses across Wales and northwest England. Large cash deposits were being made at regular intervals that didn't correspond to normal farming revenue cycles. When investigators began monitoring these financial flows, they discovered a network of connected businesses that appeared to be processing far more money than their legitimate activities could generate. Shell companies were being used to purchase high-value assets, including luxury vehicles and property investments, using funds that couldn't be explained through declared business income. Operation Falcon officially launched in July 2023 as a joint investigation between the Northwest Regional Organized Crime Unit, the National Crime Agency, and HM Revenue and Customs. The operation's scope quickly expanded as investigators realized they were tracking an organization with international connections and industrial-scale drug trafficking capabilities. Surveillance teams established monitoring positions around Hearst's farm and identified the pattern of Remington's European trips. Covert cameras were installed at strategic locations to record vehicle movements and identify the extent of the distribution network. Financial investigators began tracing money flows through the network of shell companies and legitimate businesses. The evidence was overwhelming, but required careful coordination to ensure maximum impact. Rather than arresting individuals as evidence emerged, investigators decided to monitor the complete operation and strike simultaneously across all locations. September 18, 2023. Intelligence indicated that Remington had left the UK for what surveillance suggested would be his final European trip. The evidence gathered over previous months indicated this would be the largest importation yet attempted, potentially containing enough drugs to supply UK markets for months. 2 days later, as Remington began unloading his trailer at Hearst's farm, armed police teams moved simultaneously across multiple locations in Wales, Liverpool, and Surrey. The takedown, 6:47 a.m., September 20th, 2023. Tirless Gotch Farm, Pinfold Lane, Altammy, Deeside. Guy Remington was dragging the first packages from his trailer's hidden compartments when armed police burst through the farmyard gates. The months of careful planning, the sophisticated concealment methods, the corporate-level operational security, all of it collapsed in seconds. The raid's timing was perfect. Remington had been caught in the act of unloading what would prove to be the largest single drug seizure in UK history. Luke Hearst was arrested in the back of a taxi in nearby Mold, apparently attempting to flee after spotting police surveillance around the farm. The immediate seizures were staggering. 505 kilograms of cocaine with an estimated purity of over 90%, 108 kilograms of heroin, 183,865 pounds in cash found in Remington's vehicle. The drugs alone had a street value exceeding 64 million pounds, more than most legitimate companies generate in annual revenue. But the operation's true scope only became clear during subsequent searches. Remington's business premises yielded over 700,000 pounds in additional cash, multiple luxury vehicles, and documentation revealing the network's European connections. Thomas Smith's Liverpool residence contained half a kilogram of cocaine, 9,807 MDMA tablets, and 16,000 pounds in cash. Morgan Towner's Surrey property yielded evidence of the organization's Southern England distribution networks. The documentation seized during these raids painted a picture of criminal enterprise that dwarfed anything UK law enforcement had previously encountered. Financial records showed money flows exceeding £250 million over the operation's 18-month lifespan. Communications revealed plans for expansion that would have established Bandidos-controlled distribution networks across every major UK city. Most damaging of all were encrypted communications that revealed the operation's true nature. Rather than independent criminals who happened to work together, these were disciplined operatives following orders from Bandidos leadership, based in Europe and North America. The UK operation had been designed as a profit center to fund the Motorcycle Club's global expansion plans. Charles Dilworth, a 25-year-old from Liverpool who had been present at the farm during the raid, initially escaped by fleeing the scene in a black Range Rover. In a desperate attempt to avoid arrest, he and his associates made a false 999 call claiming they had been kidnapped at knife point. The deception was quickly exposed, and Dilworth was arrested at Manchester Airport when he attempted to return to the UK after several weeks abroad. The aftermath. Chester Crown Court, March 21st, 2024. As Judge Recorder Simon Mills delivered sentences totaling 55 years, the true cost of the Bandidos' UK ambitions became clear. Guy Remington received 20 years for conspiracy to import and supply Class A drugs. Luke Hurst was sentenced to 15 years for his role in providing storage and distribution facilities. Thomas Smith received 12 years for controlling Liverpool distribution networks. Morgan Towner was given 8 years for managing Southern England operations. The financial penalties were equally devastating. Under Proceeds of Crime Act legislation, the organization's assets worth over £2 million were seized, including luxury vehicles, property investments, and business holdings that had been purchased with drug profits. But the investigation's impact extended far beyond individual convictions. Operation Falcon had exposed and dismantled the entire European supply chain that had been feeding UK drug markets for over 2 years. The Bandidos' carefully constructed network of legitimate front businesses lay in ruins, their operational security proven worthless against sustained law enforcement investigation. Most significantly, the operation had demonstrated that motorcycle clubs' evolution towards sophisticated criminal enterprises made them vulnerable to the same financial intelligence techniques that had proven effective against traditional organized crime. The Bandidos' corporate structure, which they had believed provided operational security, had actually created audit trails that made their activities more detectable than traditional criminal methods. Detective Chief Inspector Russo described the operation as a watershed moment in UK law enforcement's approach to motorcycle club criminal activity. Rather than treating them as territorial gangs engaged in street-level crime, Operation Falcon had demonstrated the need for investigations that matched the sophistication of modern criminal enterprises. The international ramifications were equally significant. European law enforcement agencies used intelligence from Operation Falcon to launch coordinated operations against Bandidos networks across multiple countries. The supply chains that had taken years to establish were disrupted within months of the UK arrests. Crushing the Bandidos' dreams. Today, the remnants of the Bandidos' UK operation serve as a case study in how criminal organizations can be dismantled through patient investigation and international cooperation. What had appeared to be an unstoppable expansion into one of Europe's most lucrative drug markets had been completely destroyed within 24 hours. The £64 million seized during Operation Falcon represented just the immediate inventory. Financial investigators estimate the total value of the disrupted criminal enterprise exceeded £250 million. For an organization that measured success in quarterly profit reports, this represented a catastrophic business failure that would take years to recover from. More importantly, the operation had demonstrated that the Bandidos' corporate approach to criminal activity, while initially successful at avoiding detection, ultimately made them more vulnerable to comprehensive investigation. Their reliance on legitimate business infrastructure created digital trails that traditional street gangs avoided through their informality. The International Motorcycle Club, that had believed its sophisticated organization made it superior to traditional criminal enterprises, learned that evolution toward legitimate business methods brought legitimate business vulnerabilities. The same record-keeping that enabled their operational efficiency provided law enforcement with detailed evidence of their criminal activities. Operation Falcon didn't just seize drugs and arrest criminals, it crushed the Bandidos' dream of establishing a permanent foothold in the UK market. The network they had spent years building was not only destroyed, but its destruction served as a warning to other international criminal organizations considering UK expansion. The quiet farm in Deeside, where Guy Remington had believed he was safely unloading his final shipment, became the site where one of the world's most sophisticated criminal organizations discovered that in modern law enforcement's digital age, there is nowhere to hide.